Welcome everyone to the Madison Fabric user group. We've got Marc Lelijveld here talking about changing the way we interact with data in the era of AI. Excited to be continuing the 11th year. The Madison Fabric user group has been educating people on Power BI and Fabric and helping bring data and analytics to the world. So with that, with no further ado, here is Marc Lelijveld. Marc, welcome to the user group.
Thank you, Chris. So let me just share a window. I'm gonna share a window by window tonight, actually, because I don't want to bother you with a 40-inch ultra wide screen. So you need a magnifier to actually look at it. So I'm gonna do window by window. So as soon as I switch to my demos, I actually have to switch the screen share.
We'll forgive you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me in the first place. As Chris already said, I decided to use my FabCon deck because I had a bunch of content prepared. That this session was picked for FabCon, and I forced myself to include all the latest and greatest updates from FabCon, including all the announcements that they already give me in advance during the MVP Summit the week before. So this will be, as far as I'm aware, at least the most up-to-date content on this topic that you're going to find. So a topic is what I call changing the way how we interact with data in the era of AI. And basically, the first thing I will briefly introduce myself, and then we just dive right into the topic. So my name is Marc. I'm working at McCall as a Dutch Microsoft partner. We basically do everything Microsoft except Dynamics and Xbox. I'm a technical evangelist and an architect at this company, working there for 7 years already. I'm also a 6 year in a row Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. Started in Power BI, and well, basically when the Fabric train came along, I thought like, well, this is cool. Let's jump on that one as well. Feel free to connect with me on the socials like Blue Sky, LinkedIn, and find me on my own website like data-mark.com, where I regularly blog about these topics. And if you ever make your way to the Netherlands for whatever reason, I'm one of the people running the Dutch Fabric user group. I'm one of 3 behind this user group. We only do in-person meetups intentionally. We never plan to go online, but we try to host something every month. I always like to add something personal. Even in my free time, I do a lot of Power BI and Fabric because everything in some way generates data. Like riding my bike, I always say like you're not properly Dutch if you don't own more than 1 bike. So I have 5. So I can basically take all the boxes.
Hang on. What do you have 5 bikes for? What are the? Does one of them go on water? What is the 5 bikes you have?
Well, it's a race bike, road bike. Then I have a gravel bike. I have another gravel bike that I bought last year for a nice competition. I have a mountain bike, and then I have a city bike.
A grapple bike? Is this for wrestling? Yes. Is it a wrestling bike? Say more.
It's basically the same style as a road cycling, but with wider tires. So the tires are closer to a mountain bike, but the frame and the geometry and everything is closer to a road bike. So it is intended to actually go on the gravel roads.
Okay. Oh, gravel bike. Okay.
Yes.
So you said grapple, like wrestling, like grappling.
Oh no, sorry.
No problem.
But I got 2 of those actually. But yeah, if you ride a bike, it generates data. So that's how my personal stuff also comes together in Power BI and Fabric. For example, another example, I own a drone. A drone is just like an airplane. It has a black box. It generates a shit ton of data, which I obviously had to analyze with Fabric and Power BI. Yeah, I would say enough about me. Let's just dive right into it. I first want to talk briefly about understanding how we interact with data today and how that differs when we have the era of AI here right now. I want to talk a bit about setting a proper data foundation as a second topic. Then we talk about 3 different ways how we can interact in a chat interface with our data, which is data Q&A. Obviously, we have to talk a little bit about Copilot. As you already can hear by my voice, I'm not too big of a fan of that, but I will explain later. We talk about data agents, which you may know as AI skills. Then we talk about how we bring that to the users and a short wrap-up. as I understood, you all have a hard stop at 1, or almost all have a hard stop at 1. So I'm going to do my best to stick within that time frame. So, oh, you even changed shirts to wear my. So I think the shirt you're wearing right now is perfectly fitted because it says it depends on the bottom. So that's going to be the right fit for when we talk about Copilot. So understanding data interaction. So basically, when we start interacting with data, and what we did in the past, like a typical analytics project kind of looked like this. We have data from different sources on the left-hand side, like your ERP, your CRM, your operational data, basically. You bring that over to a platform, whether that is a data warehouse or lakehouse, it doesn't really matter. You bring it over to a data platform. On top of that, you build a semantic model. You build a report out of that, and that's what you share with your users. And basically, you kind of hope, fingers crossed, that they actually look at your report. You want to measure that, of course, but this is a simplified overview of what a typical analytics solution looked like before the era of AI. However, the way how we interact with data is completely changing right now. It's changing because we have so many different ways to interact with data, as we can already see by Copilot that is integrated in every Microsoft application, but also things like ChatGPT and other chat experiences that are made available to us. So why should I still open a report to get to my insights? Why should I still open a report to figure out what my sales was for the last for yesterday or for last week? Why should I still go to app.powerbi.com to figure that out? If we have different ways of doing this, especially like we're all busy, we're all in meetings all day. So why should I still go there? And why don't I just have an interface right in front of me in Microsoft Teams or anything else that I may be using to just chat with my data? And that's what we're going to talk about. So what if you could just chat with your data? What if I could just ask a chat interface or a chat bot, what does my sales look like for yesterday? And it provides me with actually an accurate answer based on what I define as sales, based on my company KPIs, and it will provide me that answer just in natural language. Not necessarily a fancy visual or anything, but it just provides me that in natural language, the same languages that I'm asking it. Well, this all starts with setting up a proper data foundation, because before we can actually ask a decent question to our data, we need to make sure that we have the data in the right place all together. We thought about definitions, we thought about how we bring it to the user. And basically, we have different personas that we want to service. This can be your customer, maybe you're a financial advisor, you're a portfolio manager, whatever you are. You may be one of these personas that is interested to get more out of your data. And we work with a lot of different platforms. Maybe we work with a digital experience platform, something like CRM or ERP or document management with SharePoint or OneDrive. But we need to uniform this data and bring it to a single place. Because if we ask a chatbot, what is my sales for yesterday? Where does it get that information from? So we need to bring that together. We want to interact with modern technologies like Copilots and chatbots. And maybe you want to enrich that with predictions to figure out what is the trend over the last couple of months and how will it continue going forward. So we first need to bring it all together in a unified platform, and that's where we're going to hit the topic of today, Microsoft Fabric. Fabric is what we could see as a data management platform, or at least a central data platform to bring all these different sources, all these platforms on the bottom together to serve it as a central and single source of truth to the modern technology that we have on the top. And basically, before we can do that, we need to think about setting a proper foundation, because nobody wants to build a house on quicksand. And that's actually a topic in the Netherlands, because, well, our country is entirely below sea level. So as soon as we don't think about where we're building our houses and how we're building our houses, they will be gone in a few years. Same applies for how we work with data. So we need to make sure.
Is quicksand a current challenge that you potentially face?
Well, actually, there are areas in our country that are sinking lower and lower. And the lowest point of the Netherlands is not too far from my home. It's about 10 kilometers. Which is 16 meters below sea level, which is basically like 2/3 of the Netherlands is below sea level, that if one of our dikes will break, 2/3 of the country at least will be flooded.
Holy cow. Holy
Yep.
cow. 2/3 of your country. Wow, so the reason I ask is Scooby-Doo led me to believe that when I grew up, quicksand would be a significant issue in my life, and I have not encountered it once. And this is
Well, because we don't have mountains, we don't have rocks, so our ground is very soft. It's not necessarily quicksand, but we have a very soft foundation, basically. So if we build a house on top of that directly, it will slowly but surely sink into the ground. So we need to think about the foundation first, which is secured into the ground with big wooden poles or anything like that before we build a house on top. So that's what we can see as the foundation that we first need to make before we start building our house. And that's also the analogy that I want to highlight here. Like, you first need to make sure that you have that proper foundation before you start making a chatbot on top of your data. By just throwing the data in, you're not going to get the answer that you're looking for. So if you look at Microsoft Fabric as that data foundation, we'll basically have all the services that you probably are all familiar with already, or you at least have heard of seen them before, like Data Factory for your data ingestion, data engineering and warehousing for transforming and storing it, data science to enrich it, real-time intelligence for any streaming or sensor data, Power BI to visualize it. Nowadays, we also have the Fabric databases, and that's all powered by AI. Data stored in one lake centrally and Purview for governance. Just storing the data centrally in one lake is not enough. We need to enrich it. And that's the point also where Power BI will play an essential role. That's basically because we first need to think about a data solution, which is a platform workload. So we need to think about a structure of our platform, striving for that single source of truth. That can be a Medallion architecture like the bronze, silver, and the gold layers. But it also comes back to do the data transformation where they should be done. Maybe you've heard of Roche's Maxim before. Maxim Roche is a guy that works at Microsoft. We always said, like, do your data transformations as far upstream as possible and as far downstream as necessary. So do them, in other words, do them as early in the process as possible and as late as you need to do it, literally. So joining two sources together, please do it in your platform. Don't do it in Power BI. Creating an aggregation like the sum of your sales amount column, that's completely fine to do in a measure in a semantic model. So that's also where you need to think about. And the last one on this slide, semantics and business logic should be added. Just having a column that's called sales is not enough. We need to think about what does sales mean for us. Why is this the definition behind sales? Add synonyms to it, enrich it with some descriptions, so everyone looking at it understands what it is. And that's also where Power BI part comes in, the semantic model. So that's all part of building that decent data solution that is more important than ever. Because if we're just asking something to ChatGPT, we're just asking something to Gemini or Copilot or whatever AI tool you're using, we expect it to be based on the truth. Well, often, if we just ask it a question, often it starts hallucinating. It starts making up answers which are not based on our own data or based on the truth. And that's the point where we need to make sure that we provide that decent data solution as a source behind these AI engines to make sure that we actually get the right answers. So we can also conclude without data, there is no AI. So if you start any AI project right now or going forward, make sure that a data foundation is set properly. Before or without a data foundation, you're not getting anywhere with AI. And I want to explore during the session 3 different solution areas. The one is probably the most boring one, which is the Q&A visual in Power BI. You probably have heard and seen that before if you work with Power BI, but it's maybe the most reliable option we have today, but we're going to see. The second one is Copilot in Power BI as well. I'm using Power BI intentionally as that's the place where we built our data platform. We're just jumping forward to the point where we already have a data platform set. And the third one is data agents, or in other words, AI skills. We're just going to explore them one by one. So Power BI Q&A. Power BI Q&A is basically a feature that is using exact string matching between the prompt and the semantic model. So it is something that only works within Power BI. And it's basically trying to match the words in your prompt. So as you can see in the small GIF on the screen, so it's trying to match the word like global sales to whatever you have in your semantic model. This can either be tables, columns, measures, or any other object that lives in your semantic model. Because it is exact string matching, it has no clue of what your context of your question is. It is just trying to match the words, whether you're going to say like, well, all the context that you may add, like last year my sales was lower, and I'm actually to see how it really differs for this year. All that is ignored. It's just picking up the word sales and year probably. And that's actually what is happening within Q&A. The overall setup is there is actually a training interface, and not a lot of people are using this, at least the customers that I work with. The training in the Q&A is basically looking at the previous asked questions and the answers from your users and trying to enrich those questions by adding more synonyms to your semantic model, by adding more descriptions, so there's a better chance to get the right answers going forward. Also, keep in mind that you can exclude certain columns or entire tables from the potential answers just by hiding elements like the key columns that don't make a lot of sense, or some, for example, if you use field parameters, that generates an additional table in your model, which you not necessarily want to use for your Q&A. And enriching your semantic model is basically what you can do by adding synonyms and descriptions mostly. But there is a third option, which is one of the least explored ones, which is the linguistic schema. And the linguistic schema is basically in a JSON format, as you can see on the bottom, which is adding additional context like the phrasing, whether it's a noun or and everything based on specific business terms that you may have in your semantic model. Personally, I think this can be really interesting for if you're in a dedicated business, like if you're in healthcare or anything like that. You will be using terms that are not very familiar and not common or typical. So you don't talk about sales, you talk about specific medical terms, which may need additional context. And that's where the linguistic schema comes in. With that, let's shift quickly to the first demo. And I'll change the screen share to this one. Since we're not talking about Copilot yet, I'm going to hide this one for a second. So you should be able to see my Power BI desktop right now. And in Power BI desktop, we of course have the most fantastic data set to try out today, which is AdventureWorks. Who doesn't love it? So we're talking about a typical sales model. We have a sales table, fact internet sales, which is surrounded by a bunch of dimensions. We have a dimension about our customers, a date table, products, and it's actually a snowflake schema. So we also have a product subcategory and a product category. And we still have the sales territory as well. So if I'm starting to add a Q&A to it, basically, a Q&A starts with a little visual, which you have here on the right. The Q&A visual is there for years already. I think it's there for at least 5 years, if not longer. A Q&A visual can either be triggered by just creating a button on your screen, which will generate it as a sort of pop-up, or just as a visual that can be part of your report. As soon as I open it, it will already tell me and suggest me to start using Copilot. I'm a little bit ignorant for now, so I'm just going to say no. This is the place where I can start asking questions. And as I said, it is based on exact string matching. So if I start typing things like, show me my sales over time, at this time, in this case, it's just throwing me the entire table, which is called sales. And in this case, it doesn't really answer my question because it's just an entire table, and I have to figure out myself what the sum is of this column, for example. So it is showing me the results for fact internet sales sorted by the end date. I actually want to see maybe the sales amount. And let's just start with only sales amount. It gives me the total sum of sales amount. And I can say, well, by product category. And it's doing a sort of assumption right now, because as you can see, the sales amount is a solid blue line. The solid blue line kind of tells us like, hey, I recognize what you're looking for here. Well, the product category is a dotted blue line. And that's kind of telling us that it's doing a sort of guess that it thinks that we're looking for something, and it recognizes the object in the semantic model, but it's not sure if this is what we actually want. So it's showing us that's what I love about Q&A visual. It's showing us at least the description of what it's generating. So it's showing us the results for the dim product categories based on the product dim product subcategories and the total sales amount. So it's telling us that it's crossing those two dimensions, going back to our semantic model for a second, telling us that it's using the dim product category to cross the subcategory table, to cross the dim product to get the information from the fact internet sales. This helps us to at least value the result to see if this is actually what we're looking for or not. So an alternative could be, what if I just ask for revenue? Because maybe I'm not familiar with this semantic model. I don't know what the terms are that are used in this semantic model because I'm just a user. And if I ask for revenue, I think we can all conclude that the answer that it's generating right now is kind of bullshit. It's showing us the column yearly income, which has nothing to do with revenue. And that's where training the Q&A visual comes in. The Q&A visual, as an author of a report, has this little gear icon here. And if I open that, I'm going to a Teach Q&A window. And Teach Q&A means that I can start adding synonyms. I can review existing questions. I can teach it by giving a few prompts, a few examples. And I can suggest questions. So I can inspire my users that as soon as they see the Q&A visual, that it at least have some examples of this is what you could potentially use or could potentially ask. The synonym starts with, I think it's a useful interface, but it takes you a lot of time to get through. Because for every table, it will show us all the fields that are in the table, and it suggests us potential synonyms for each field. So it's kind of telling us, well, you have a column which is called address line 1. This could actually, it already has the synonyms address line 1 without spaces, just line 1. But address could also be a location, it could be a direction, it could be a place or a residence. So it's giving us some suggestions, so I can actually add those. Like, yeah, sure, this sounds good. Let's add that as a potential one. And I can also share my synonyms across the organization by telling it like, hey, I think address and location are the same thing. So anyone else that might be using this semantic model can benefit from this. As I said, I don't really like to go through all the items that are in here right now. What I just want to show you is that I can just include or exclude specific columns from Q&A to not be part of it, or even entire tables. Just say, well, I don't want my customer information to be included. Just leave out that customer dimension. It's a choice that I could make. For now, we'll just leave it. But we were trying to get an answer on revenue. And the other place where I can enrich this Q&A behavior is basically going back to my semantic model. In fact, internet sales, we have a measure which is called the sales amount, which is just a simple sum of fact internet sales. On the right-hand side, we actually have the synonyms field here. And in synonyms, I can just type comma-separated multiple synonyms. Well, let's just take the assumption for a second. I know revenue is different than actual sales amount, but let's take the assumption that this is actually the same. So I can just add revenue, I can add profit, I can add income out of orders, whatever I want to add here. I can just add multiple things as potential synonyms. And as soon as this is saved to the model and I just go back here, I ask it the same question, revenue, by, let's do the same thing, revenue by, let's do product. It at least shows me the sum of sales amount and the dim product of fact internet sales. So it is actually recognizing now what I mean by revenue. And let's say just product category, because category. And right now it's actually totally fine. It recognizes what I mean by revenue. It recognizes what I mean by product category. And in this way, we can improve the entire behavior of Q&A. Where not a lot of people actually adopted using Q&A as a feature because they said the answers were not what they were looking for, to still phrase it nicely. That is mainly because they didn't take the effort to actually train the Q&A engine, and by adding synonyms, by enriching it with descriptions and all of that. I personally think that
a question for you. I've seen a handful of companies that love Q&A because they have gone to this extent to do all this work.
Yep.
What's been your experience in the number of people or companies that have done all of these things?
I've only come across one customer in roughly 7 years that has actually took the effort, or let's phrase it differently, that was willing to pay me to put in the efforts to add synonyms and all of that.
Okay.
So that's also the place where to speed up this entire process, where Copilot can be useful. The message that I quickly clicked away in the beginning, and it will actually be here as well, improves Q&A with synonyms from Copilot, is basically a way how I can leverage Copilot to generate a bunch of synonyms for me. Similarly, I can do the same thing if I go here. The synonyms are not available from here, but just from the Q&A training interface. But for example, the description, I can just say, create one with using Copilot. And it gives me a suggestion like, from Copilot, I think this is what it's doing. Calculate the total sales amount by summing the sales amount column from the fact internet sales table. And you say, yeah, sure, fine, sounds good to me. And we'll add that to it. You can also do this in bulk with some little tricks, but also for the synonyms, I think this is where it will be easier and where Copilot will help us and speed up that process. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to switch back to the deck for a second. So back to the deck, we should be able to see it again. We talked a bit about the Q&A visual, but of course, there's no Microsoft kind of presentation or Microsoft's related presentation without Copilot. I just highlighted quickly Copilot to use for generating synonyms and generating descriptions, but there's more. However, as you may know, Dutch people are a bit direct in their communication, and so am I. So I'm getting a bit tired of the never-ending Copilot conversations every now and then. And as soon as you ask Microsoft for an improvement in a certain area, the usual answer you get is, well, we have Copilot to help you. Like, no, I just don't want it. So the big question is, should we hammer this with Copilot as well? Well, we're going to see how useful Copilot is in this area. So Copilot in Fabric. Let's at least get one thing clear. I have a lot of customers that reach out to me and they just ask me, hey, we have the Copilot license now. I want to start talking to my data. So how do I do that? Where do I start? Well, let's start with which Copilot are we talking about? Because every Microsoft service or every Microsoft product has a Copilot in it right now. So which one are we talking about? Basically, we can identify 3 different areas if we talk about the data landscape, so everything in Fabric. The first one is Copilot Accelerated Experiences. The second one is AI-driven insights, and the third one is custom generative AI. The Copilot Accelerated Experiences is the magic Copilot button that you see everywhere in the products. These basically help you to build stuff. They help you to build your report, help you to write your decks, help you to understand the deck expression that your colleague may have created. The second one, AI-driven insights, are things like smart narratives, which help you to summarize and find insights in your data. Not necessarily to create something, but to find patterns and insights. The third one, that is your custom configured and build your own AI solution, and that's where we would position data agents as well. So that's the last part that we're going to talk about for today. For now, we're just going to look at that Copilot Accelerated Experiences and AI-driven insights for a sec. So everywhere within Fabric, you will find Copilot experiences. In Data Factory, to help you build your pipelines in warehousing and engineering, but also in databases to write your T-SQL queries, for example, or help you debug your PySpark code. Real-time intelligence, it helps you to write your KQL queries. In Power BI, it can help you to build new report pages, but also generate natural language summaries, which are actually more in that second category, and generate the synonyms, as we've already seen. If I would personally plot where Copilot will be useful, if we plot it on the axis of your years of experience and your expertise, I would say on the left bottom, if you're not so experienced and not so long in this job yet, Copilot will definitely be able to help you to get started and speed things up for you. However, if you're on the far right, in some way or another, you're very experienced or you have a lot of years of experiences, um, you will probably be faster and better than whatever Copilot is going to do for you. Typically, if I let Copilot generate some DAX for me, I'm looking at it like, well, I'm not sure about this. However, on the other hand, if you talk about my PySpark experience, then I'm somewhere on the left bottom. And at that point, Copilot is very useful for me to help me debug my code because I thought I knew what to do, but I have no clue what I'm doing. And then it's very useful for me to help me debug my code and get to the point where I want to be. So also think about this for who is Copilot actually, and how will it help me in my job? So if we look at Copilot in Power BI, it helps you to summarize your semantic model. It can just ask a question like, tell me what this semantic model is about. So if you have something available to you and you want to build a custom report on top of it, you can just get a summary of what it's about. It can help you to suggest report content. Like if it is a sales data set, it will probably give you suggestions about showing sales over time or by product category. It can actually create that report page for you. It can create a summary visual, the smart narrative is what you can see here, a textual summary of everything that you have in your report. I think that's a very cool feature though. Adding synonyms and descriptions to your model and your measures we've seen. And within DQV DAX Query View, it can actually help you to write your DAX or debug your DAX. DQV is a pro developer feature, and that's the point where I get a little bit annoyed with Copilot, because that's the point where you will be in the far left or far right top. If you're a pro developer, you probably know very well what you're doing. At that point, you're probably better in writing DAX than Copilot's going to do for you. However, that's not the point where we're going to focus on today. So we're going to focus on the the Copilot consumer experiences. I'm a person that's going to look at a semantic model that's been made available to me. I want to build a new report page. I want to figure out where it's about, etc. So jumping right back into Power BI Desktop, I keep on using Desktop for the sole reason that we just have everything on my computer. But what I wanted to highlight is basically in Power BI Desktop, let me just delete this report page for a sec. You have a Copilot experience, which is a button here on the top ribbon. Once you have that, you basically get it here on the side as well. That Copilot experience, the first time will ask you to sign in, and it asks you to sign in with a user account, which today has access to an F64 capacity. Or a P1 capacity. That limitation will be gone by the end of this month. Copilot will become available to all capacity sizes. For now, it asks you to sign in with an account that has access to a capacity. Otherwise, your Copilot experience will tell you that you don't have the right permissions or licenses. I can imagine
that is something that's rolling out. I saw it working on a lower SKU yesterday.
Yep. Yep. Microsoft, somebody in the CAT team confirmed on our user group earlier this week that it's actually being rolled. It should be all rolled out across the world by the 30th of April. So we have to be a little bit more patient still. But at that point, it will be available on all capacity sizes, so even on an F2. Though keep in mind you might burn your capacity pretty easily if you start prompting Copilot on an F2, but it is available at least. I do realize that this might be a little bit small on your screen, so I'm just going to tell you as well what I'm going to ask Copilot to do. So let's just start with what is this semantic model about? And I expect it to at least give me an answer. And this is the lovely Copilot experience, which is a bit clunky and buggy, because right now it doesn't allow me to send a prompt. And the magic trick is to just close the Copilot pane and reopen it. If I now ask the same question, it magically works. And we have to give it a little moment, and it will basically tell me a textual summary of what the semantic model is about. It tells me the semantic model is designed to analyze internet sales data. It includes detailed information about sales transactions, customers, products, dates, sales territories. This model can be used to gain insights into sales performance, customer geographics, product details, regional sales trends, etc., etc. So far, Copilot has not been very intelligent because so far it has just summed up the tables that we have in our semantic model with some blurb around it. So what could be the next question we're going to ask? What could be the best analysis to start with? And I expect it at least to give me some insights. So basically what it says is, okay, here is a suggested outline for your report. Select any page or topic to view details and start creating pages. So it suggests me to start creating a sales performance page, a customer geographics page, product analysis, or regional sales. The sales performance sounds good to me. So I just gonna say create. And at this point, it will start creating me a report page. It will be a default look and feel page. It shows me at least the sum of sales amount over time. It shows me the number of orders over time. So far, so good. What I don't like, though, is that it completely ignored any objects that I may have added to the semantic model, like my measures. So what it actually did is this is actually an implicit measure at this point. It generated, it figured out that there's a column called sales amount. It just used that, and it generated an implicit measure by just creating an on-demand summarization of the sales amount. But maybe within my company, I have the definition that sales is everything excluding a certain product category, because that is sales between departments internal in our company or whatever reason we may have. And I may have included that in the measure that we have right here, the sum of sales amount, but it's not using this. So it's ignoring the explicit measures, which can be very annoying. So you know what? We are just ditching the report for a second. We're just going to ask it, what is my total revenue over by product category? Let's say that. So we're just going to ask it like a user could do, like, I want to chat with my data. So I want to get an answer in the chat interface, not necessarily in your report page. Let's see what it comes up with right now. It's going to think for a moment. It's going to try to map my information. And it's actually providing me a pretty decent answer. So it is able to answer this. It understands what product categories are. It understands what revenue is. And this is also how we should actually value the output from Copilot. Because it may be very small on your screen, but there's a little identifier here on the bottom of the answer, which is a number. It's the number 1 in this case, which is basically telling us, hey, I'm returning you an answer that is based on something that is already on the report. So it is telling us, like this number 1, the output right here. So bikes is 28 million, accessories 700K, and clothing almost 340K. This is based on the visual that we have. And if I just click it and navigate to that visual on the screen, this answer was based on something that we have on the report. In other words, if it doesn't do this, Copilot is most likely hallucinating. If it doesn't include any reference to something that may be in the report or maybe somewhere in your semantic model, always at least try to figure out whether this answer is correct or not. If it has reference to something on the report, you can kind of guarantee that it is based on something. With that, keep also in mind that if I ask it for something completely different, that is not in the report, that the answer might be off. What I do like about the response, I asked for revenue by product category. Given that we previously added revenue as a synonym for sales amount, it did recognize that this visual, although it shows the sales amount measure, that it's actually the same as revenue. So it respects any additional information that we've added to the semantic model, like synonyms and descriptions and everything. And that is key to actually make your Copilot act like it should be. That's part of the Copilot experience. Another one is this the smart narratives, which is this one. It's just a casual text summary. I could have typed this all myself, but you see the same behavior here as we have in the Copilot experience. The small references with small numbers to everything we have in this report. So it tells me your total sales amount is 28 or 29 million. If I just click that, it navigates me to somewhere on my report, which says that my sales is 29 million. Similarly, for for clothing, it is 240K, which navigates back to the same item. You just click it, it highlights. This textual summary is also fully interactive. So if I just click a certain category, it tells me, hey, there is a change to the filters on this page, and it can just refresh the summary and it will regenerate it. So we see a little thing turning here, and in a second we will get a new summary of the data. All this also works in the Power BI service, or the Fabric service, if you will, as long as you have the right capacity at your hands and have Copilot enabled, obviously. That's a little bit about the Copilot experience. So it is able to answer your questions, but keep in mind to add synonyms, descriptions, and all of that, and preferably have it based on the report that's already there. Jumping to the last part of the three experiences we wanted to explore, which is AI skills. So AI skills, or data agents, which is the new name, is a feature that's only available in Fabric. It is something that is unique to Fabric, and it has been developed by the data science team, actually, in Microsoft. So data agents, previously known as AI skills, is basically something that allows you to chat to your data, no matter whether it's a lakehouse, a warehouse, a semantic model, or anything else. So it's kind of a conversational data agent that allows you to interact with your data in a natural language by enhancing accessibility and usability of all these objects. As a creator, it has a debugging experience. You can enrich it with notes for a model. So basically, you can tell it, if I ask for this, I always want you to do this or that. Data sources that are supported today are always related to Fabric. So it is a lakehouse, a warehouse, a semantic model, or an event house. Those are your only sources. Those lake houses and everything can contain shortcuts to other data that may be outside of Fabric, but the data needs to be available in Fabric, so a data agent cannot directly reach out to any storage outside of Fabric. And there's a bunch of integrations possible from data agents, like things like Teams, Copilot Studio, or Azure AI Foundry. So you can integrate it into your own custom applications even. So data agents, if we look at the interface, this is basically the interface that you can use. On the left-hand side, we basically connect to sources. This is where we select a lakehouse and where we select the tables we want to use, which are the data agent can be using to generate your answers. On the bottom, we have the chat window, so we can ask it a question, we can try it out, we can train the data agent. On the left-hand side or right-hand side, we have the notes for the model. That's the place where we can add additional context to it. And that's where we can say, well, if I'm asking for sales amount, I'll always want you to format it as dollars because we're talking about money. And please round it by 0 decimals because I'm just looking for the high over value, not specifically for the details. Now, on the bottom of each result, you will see the reasoning for the result. So you can actually see, as a creator, you can see the query that was executed to generate this answer. So it's a way for you to figure out whether the answer was actually useful or maybe nonsense. Then you can add example queries as well. So if you have something very complex or very specific, you can provide it with sample queries, where you can just say, hey, if I'm asking for the revenue over time in a certain product category, this is the query you should be using. And it will use that as an input, but it can still train and enhance it. So with that, let me just jump into that log demo of today and switching to browser window because this only lives in the Fabric service. So right here, we're going to use this very same data set. So I have a lakehouse, which has sample data, which is, again, AdventureWorks, but I also have a semantic model. Just for the sake of it, I'm going to create a new data agent. It's just one of the options that's available. It is a preview. It is public preview. So if your tenant administrator allows you to, you can use this as well. And I can just give it a name. And in this case, I'm going to call it Demo Medicine. With 1D. There we go. As soon as I created that data agent, this is what I will see. It will kind of guide me through. It will tell me, well, before you can do something, connect to a semantic model or to a source. Right here, I'm just going to connect to a semantic model. I can also browse through all the workspaces that I have, and I'm just going to connect to this one. And I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that they actually fixed the bug that they had during FabCon. So we're going to see if this is going to work. I expect it to be, but let's see. So we right here have this semantic model. We can see everything that lives in our semantic model, including measures and everything in the columns. And we can select on table level what we want to be included. So right now, I'm just going to add only, for example, this. Only 3 small tables, and I can just tell, I can get started and start asking questions. I can just tell, like, what is my sales by product color? And at this point, as I said, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it will work, because the connection between semantic models and data agents was broken during the demo at FabCon, because they just rolled out a new update, which didn't really work. But for now, it looks like it's going to work, because last time it already filled pretty quickly. So it tells me right here in a textual summary, so this is the product colors that you have, and this is the sales for each. It tells me also there's one step completed, which is basically the rough DAX query that was used. So it tells me, well, I actually did a summarized columns based on the dim product color, the sales amount, which is the sum of effect internet sales, and then sales amount. So far, we can kind of reason what happened. We can see, well, that looks fine, but it has a lot of detail in it. So what I can do is I can add instructions to it, and that's what we can do here on the top. I can tell it, well, if I'm asking for a sales amount, please round everything to thousands. I'm only looking for high over numbers. Let's just ask the same question again. What is my sales by product color? And what is actually happening on the back end is that it's sending the metadata of my semantic model to the AI engine together with my prompt, and then trying to generate a DAX query. And it enriches that with the data agent instructions or AI instructions previously. And all this together is basically the context that is provided. As you can see, not much changed yet, although it actually did its job, because it cut off all the detail. Like if you look at red, for example, it had a lot of detail here. It was, what is it, 7,724,000. And right here, it just cut off everything. Everything is rounded by 0. So it did its thing. That's not really what I was looking for. However, maybe I just phrased it wrong or whatever. So, and it adds the context here that the sales amounts are given in rounded thousands. So as a user, it allows you to understand what is actually happening. This is the creator interface. If I want to get rid of all the detail and all the cluttering around it, I can publish a data agent. And by publishing it, I basically make it available in an interface that more or less looks like this. And of course, they don't have all the clutter here on top, where an end user can just interact with the data agent and only see the answers. And that's the point where you will actually be able to interact with your data in a chat interface. Though I still need to go to app.powerbi.com or app.fabric.microsoft.com, if you will, to actually go to this interface. So we're not bringing it to the users yet. That's the final piece that I want to talk about tonight. I'm going to switch back to the slides. And the final piece that I want to talk about is how do we bring this interface to the users instead of them going to this data agent? Because them going to this data agent in the end is similar to them going to the report. That's what we wanted to avoid. So the first question that we start with, should I create just one data agent to rule them all? So I'm just trying to create one data agent that can answer my questions based on HR, based on sales, based on finance, based on supply chain. Well, the answer is clearly no. Please don't do that. If we look at a potential architecture, it could look like this. So your data lives in one lake or it's connected to one lake. On top of that, you build multiple data agents. Each is specific to a domain or to an area. So I build a sales data agent, customer satisfaction data agent. On top of that, I can add the other integrations like AI Foundry or Copilot Studio. And these two technologies will be more or less an orchestrator. So as a user, I'm actually talking to Copilot Studio, and Copilot Studio figures out which is the best data agent to talk to. So Copilot Studio will just tell me, if I ask it like, hey, how many leave days do I have left for this year? Oh, that's probably best to ask to the HR agent. So, and it redirects that question to the HR agent. If I ask it for the sales over the last month, it will redirect it to the sales agent. And that's the logic that you will add on top using Copilot Studio or AI Foundry. And that's basically your redirector. And with that, you can also train these agents very specifically on the topic and the subject matter. So meet the users where they are. You want to bring this to your users. You want to bring that to where they are. We're all busy. We're all day in meetings. We're all day in Teams conversations. That's where we want to bring it. And basically, we use all kinds of tools all day around. So SharePoint, Power Platform, Outlook, Fabric, obviously, Teams, but also maybe Microsoft To Do. So we want to bring it to them. And we can do that by integrating it in Copilot Studio, which is part of the Power Platform, which you can just plug right into Microsoft Teams. The screenshot on the right is actually one that I created myself, where I just plugged Copilot Studio into Microsoft Teams, and Copilot Studio is talking to my data agent. And in that way, I can just kick off a conversation. And I should ask that data agent, and it will just tell me like, hey, I'm the AdventureWorks virtual assistant. And I can just ask it like, how much sales did we make per year? It will provide me in a full text, actually the result. And similar to what we've seen with Copilot and with Data Q&A before, it actually includes as little references. So those little numbers, it will tell us where the information is coming from. If I click that, it will actually open the report behind it or the data set behind it for me to validate the output that it provided me. And I can build on top of these questions. So it is a conversational experience. So I can continue by asking more questions. So I only ask for it per year, but I can also tailor it to only look for the last 3 years, etc. I can basically bring those data agents into Microsoft Teams easily. That is for now needed to do with Copilot Studio or AI Foundry. There are promises from Microsoft that they will have a native integration for data agents directly into Teams, which will make it even easier. So a small wrap up and some takeaways. I think it is key, and as I hopefully made clear, that wherever your data lives, if it is in a lakehouse, a warehouse, an event house, please, pretty please, first build the semantic model. Enrich that semantic model with synonyms, descriptions, maybe your linguistic schema if you're in a very specific business. Take that effort because that will increase the response rates for everything you build on top. On top of that semantic model, you can use either of those three technologies that I've showed you, like the good old Q&A visual, Copilot, or data agents. And based on that, basically you have the best chance of getting a decent answer instead of doing it directly on your lakehouse, warehouse, or event house. Because you're missing that essential piece of information like the synonyms, but also the business logic that's often captured in DAX expressions. And all this obviously lives in Microsoft Fabric. So Fabric is a platform that brings it all together. So a few key takeaways. If you build chat interfaces on top of your data, a proper data foundation is key. So harmonize your data in a single place, then start building the data agents on top. Improve the answer quality by using semantic models as an intermediate layer. That's where your business logic lives. That's where you include synonyms, descriptions, and your linguistic schema. Data agents, or AI skills, as they were previously called, allow you for a lot of customization and training. I only showed you a little bit of it compared to out-of-the-box copilots, which don't allow for training at all. It's just take whatever it provides. It only works on structured data. So if you have images in your lakehouse or anything else, which is unstructured, it's not able to process that. Data agents provide you with natural language to SQL capabilities, natural language to KQL, and natural language to DAX. Depending on the source you connect, it uses either one of those three. Keep in mind that it loses accuracy if you use large schemas with a lot of tables. Therefore, my comment about making specific tailored data agents instead of one to rule them all. And for today, if you bring it into Copilot Studio, keep in mind that Copilot Studio has a different licensing structure. So if you build something where you combine Copilot Studio with data agents, you need licenses on both ends. So it may be better to just go for the data agent experience for now, which is available just in Fabric without the Copilot Studio license, given there is a promise that they will bring native integrations to Microsoft Teams. Also, as I said earlier, it will become available on all Fabric capacity sizes. Right now, it is only available on F64 and up till end of this month. Last remark, it is a public preview feature, so it is in continuously development. So keep an eye out on the link at the bottom where you will find the latest updates and the latest limitations and fixes they have implemented to data agents. With that was what I wanted to share with you. It was a lot of talking from my side. I know it's already time at yours, and you may want to jump to another meeting. If you have questions, please feel free to ask.
Well done. Great job, Mark. That was fantastic. And truly comprehensive. I thought, I was going to catch you on like a couple things you missed. You hit all of them there. Well done.
I probably still missed a few.
Well, you did a good job. Before we jump, I know a lot of people do have a hard deadline here. I know I do. Does anyone have any questions for Mark?
Yeah, Mark, this is really insightful. Like Chris said, do you have this deck or like these materials available to read later and come back to?
Yep.
Because like personally, I definitely like to play around with some of this stuff. This is great.
Definitely. I will upload the latest version as well as the previous version is already there on my GitHub. So if you manage to spell my name, and I will just drop the link in the chat, it's probably easier.
Okay.
If you go to this repository, which is in the chat right now, you will find a structure with folders and everything where you'll find all my decks for all the public things that I did. Right there, you will also find a folder from FabCon Vegas. This deck is already in there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, awesome. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you all very much for joining us. We've got another rip-roaring exciting session coming up next month. But Mark, thank you so much for staying up late and showing us this incredible presentation. So
thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure. And it's not that late yet. It's only 8 o'clock, so it's all good.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.